Good morning. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Certainly want to thank all the members of the Montgomery United Transition Team, and I want to thank our co-chairs, Judge Manzetta McPherson and Mr. John Mazik, for the work that they've done over the last few months. And this is a very important endeavor because it's something that has not been done after any mayoral election. That was to have a transition committee formed with public input participating in the process. And we brought together a diverse group of Montgomery citizens to convene together and recommend to my administration solutions to some of the issues affecting our quality of life here. Led by Judge Manzetta McPherson and Mr. John Mazik, 6 volunteer committees of teachers, law enforcement officials, engineers, artists, developers, professionals, entrepreneurs, public servants, and community leaders and stakeholders all came together. These Montgomery residents shared their knowledge and listened to the experience of others. They came to the table with differing opinions and approaches, but we are here today so that I may receive what represents their collective vision, Montgomery United. Today I am grateful to the Montgomery United Transition Team for the sacrifice of their time and their willingness to engage in this process. I'm equally as grateful to the hundreds of citizens who attended the meetings and the Municipal Assembly. Your active engagement in this process reflects your love for our city and your hopes for its future. The release of this report was temporarily delayed by COVID-19, and then delayed again by COVID-19, in what seemed like there would be an ongoing sense of crisis. However, we decided that while we're still in the midst of fighting this pandemic, we thought it was important that we release this report. And it's important that we receive these recommendations to carry Montgomery forward. The timing couldn't be more appropriate for me to receive this transition report, because this is going to be the blueprint of this administration. We've heard the feedback from our citizens. We've gotten thoughts and ideas and great ways to innovate government from many stakeholders in this community. And I'm proud to say that we've already started on some of these recommendations. We've even completed several of them. So we're on our way. But this is a recommendation that we take very seriously. It will be used as a guidepost for decisions that we make, priorities that we institute, along with our 2040 Envision plan. So at this time, I would like to invite John Mazik and Judge McPherson to share their thoughts and an overview of the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has been an honor to help to lead this transformative and historic effort. Immediately after his historic win and before taking office, Mayor Reed began a transition process to create a platform for our community to engage in meaningful conversations about how we unite across parties, economic status, neighborhoods, and points of view to move Montgomery into the future. Less than a week after he took office, Mayor Reed held a press conference to announce John Mazik and me as the leaders of the transition team. He charged us and ultimately the scores of volunteers who comprise the transition committees to develop a set of actionable recommendations that he could implement during his first term in office. Ultimately, Mayor Reed tapped more than 70 volunteers to serve on 6 committees: public safety and thriving neighborhoods, education, economic development, infrastructure and transportation, cultural arts and entertainment, and health and human services. On Monday, December 16th, 2019, the Montgomery United Transition Team committees began the process of visioning a new Montgomery and charting the course to actualize that vision during the mayor's first term. For 3 months, The Montgomery United Transition Team held meetings and conversations with members of our community as we worked to prepare the report that we are honored to present to you today. The input of more than 300 members of our community influenced this report. Throughout our conversations, in committee meetings, and at the Municipal Assembly held here, there were several themes that consistently emerged as important topics of discussion. These cross-cutting themes serve as a foundation for most of the recommendations. We ask that you consider these themes as the lenses through which all policy and programmatic recommendations should be viewed. We also ask that the mayor include elements of these themes in his initiatives. Here are the cross-cutting themes. First, education. Education was the most frequently discussed topic, even beyond the Education Committee. The lack of adequate investments in public education can impact Montgomery in many ways. Deficient education impedes our children's learning and compromises their quality of life in adulthood, especially their employment opportunities. Business attraction is impaired if there is not a ready workforce. Public safety is at risk if there is high truancy and high recidivism among juvenile offenders. Talent attraction with business, the military, and entrepreneurs is impacted if families are not willing to relocate to Montgomery due to underperforming public schools. The community wants to see greater utilization of libraries, retired educators, and community volunteers, especially as reading proficiency requirements are looming. There is tremendous opportunity here to partner with colleges and universities to provide training and support programs and resources for teachers as well as for parents and students. The overwhelming consensus among all the committees is that everything starts with Montgomery's education system. The city's progress into the future will be hindered if our education system does not accelerate. The second cross-cutting theme was equity. Several of the committees emphasized equity in their discussions. Transition members wanted to ensure that the recommendations would grant everyone equal access to opportunity and success. There were many uncomfortable conversations, and Montgomery's history of inequality and the need for equity and intentional investments to open doors to opportunity. Those investments include contracting with minority businesses, incubating small businesses, investing in arts and cultural programs across the city, and investing in public facilities in low-income neighborhoods. The goal is not limited simply to create a seat at the table. The ultimate goal is to meet businesses and citizens where they are. Third, reopen community centers. There is a broad support for the city to find ways to invest in renovating, reopening, and staffing many of the community centers that are currently shuttered. The concept was discussed by several committees. Many participants reminisced about how youth membership and crime prevention programs used to take place inside those facilities and their desire to bring those programs back. Community centers can be used to provide more access to health and wellness programs. The centers could house arts programs for youth, provide shared spaces to incubate creative adults and children, and provide access to the equipment they need to hone their crafts. To ease the financial burden on the city, participants also discussed the creation of public-private partnerships with nonprofits and community-based organizations to staff those facilities. Fourth, marketing and communications. There was a general consensus that there is inadequate marketing of city programs, initiatives, and services. Ineffective outreach to make citizens aware of those valuable municipal offerings, and the absence of a centralized platform that makes these offerings accessible to the public. Health and Human Services believes that the city should do a better job of identifying and disclosing health issues and resources that are available to address them. To address this need, they are recommending a multi-year marketing and information campaign. Economic development sees an opportunity to improve marketing of the city to passersby on the interstate routes and proposes, among other things, a targeted campaign to lure travelers off the highways and into the city to visit. Cultural arts and entertainment wants more robust and well-maintained events and cultural opportunities that exist in Montgomery. Public safety also discussed the need to invest in promotional campaigns to recruit police officers. Fifth, outside funding. Most committee members were acutely aware that the city does not have the financial resources to fund all the initiatives in our recommendations. Committee members were generally realistic about what it would take to implement their recommendations and were sensitive to compromising the mayor by creating a set of non-actionable recommendations. In that context, there were frequent discussions about the city's historical failure to pursue outside funding, especially from the federal government. There is broad support for the city's assumption of a more aggressive posture in pursuing philanthropic and federal funding to enable the Reid administration to implement these recommendations. The transition team and its 6 committees are proud of their work, and we hope that implementation of our recommendations results in a Montgomery that is progressive, educationally viable, economically sound, and above all, equitable.
And thank you again, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to lead this endeavor. This has been meaningful to me and for many in the city. The Transition Committee worked thoughtfully to develop a set of 57 recommendations to guide you during your first term, and I'm going to highlight a few more that the judge did not go over. As you know, our meetings wrapped up right before the COVID-19 pandemic began. However, our Health and Human Services Committee identified a need that is very timely right now. We recommend that you create a cabinet-level position for public health advocacy and problem solving within the mayor's office that's responsible for coordinating transformation efforts across the city's public health and healthcare system. This person will ensure that all agencies serving the city's most vulnerable populations are operating compassionately, collaboratively, equitably, and effectively. This recommendation really couldn't be more timely given what we're going through right now. I want to go off script for a second and thank you for your leadership during this. It's often said that over-communicating is a great idea. You've done that, you've reached more people. With this office, I think we could reach everybody, especially the most vulnerable and hardest to reach in the city. Our Cultural Arts and Entertainment Committee inspired some of the most consistent and broad community input. Among the recommendations is that your administration create a stronger and more adequately staffed Office of Cultural Arts and Entertainment. This should include cultural arts and special events, as the judge said, one source communication for our really thriving arts scene. This office should play the leadership role as a convener and knowledge provider and network builder to strengthen communities through the arts, cultural, and heritage activities. This office should also develop a comprehensive plan for municipal support of cultural arts and entertainment with the goal of focusing the resources of the city where they're going to do the most good. Montgomery has a long history of a successful and vibrant art scene. There are many artists who've come out of Montgomery to achieve commercial and community success, and we need to be a place that fosters that growth. It's here, it makes our city unique, and really could be part of our marketing as a unique city. As my co-chair stated, education was the most talked about topic across all communities. That's obvious and should be obvious to anyone in this room or listening. The success of our education system directly impacts the quality of life and economic opportunity in our community. To me, it doesn't matter whether you go to public school or private school. You cannot escape being affected by Montgomery's education system. To the judge's point, it affects our ability to recruit and attract not only plants, but factories. It also, the hospitals have told me it's very difficult to recruit physicians to Montgomery. We've got to do better, and that's really the key to it. We understand that the mayor's role in this is primarily that of an advocate and a convener of people. He's not control of the Montgomery public school system. To that end, we recommend that he engage the community around the Montgomery Public Schools effort to increase local funding for education by supporting a millage increase and being proactive in assisting with pursuing other funding sources. We recommend that you leverage state and local funding sources to expand pre-K programs. The funding of public education, the adequate funding of education, is something that the people in the city are going to hear far more about soon. We've got to do something about it. The time is really now. As with education, Montgomery's transportation infrastructure has a significant impact on the quality of life and economic opportunity. Our recommendations from the Infrastructure and Transportation Committee is that you reconfigure the city's public transportation system and implement a model that makes Montgomery a gateway city, and that all the routes are inner-city efficient and work for the people that are the actual riders of public transportation. It just seems like that's who your customer is. Let's figure out where they want to go and get them there, and that will help so many with economic opportunity. There's a contract that's been in place, I understand, for 20 years with the current transit provider. The committee recommends that you evaluate this and possibly rebid this out. I think it expires in September. Top recommendation for Public Safety Committee should come as a surprise to no one. Public safety cannot be achieved in isolation. Mutual respect between the police and the community is vital. MPD must continue its dedication to establish relationships with community members in order to create an environment of trust and understanding so that all of Montgomery is a safe and growing city. It is the committee's recommendation that the MPD dedicate officers to building and maintaining strong personal relationships with the community they serve, especially youth. These officers can sustain the bonds that are formed by the Junior Police Academy and by the school resource officers. I'm lucky enough to actually know Chief Finley, who's here today, and I know he's doing this on a regular basis, and the committee wants more of this, more community ties to the citizens that they serve. And we thank you for everything you've done. Finally, with economic development, we believe the vision and leadership should begin and end with you. We recommend that you restructure the Department of Economic and Community Development with a focus on downtown planning and development, retail development, small business development, and place-based economic development. While the department should provide leadership in these areas, it's vital that you collaborate closely with local partners like the Chamber of Commerce and local and private citizens to expand and develop equitable economic development across the city. I know, and I know the mayor has come to know, that many business people in this city are more engaged and more interested in Montgomery than they ever have been in my lifetime. And I know that if you call any of these men and women, they will respond. There's just no question about that. You've seen it, and it's happening. The citizens are engaged, and I think now is the time. With that, we invite the public to visit the city's website and download a copy of the report that we proudly deliver to you on behalf of Montgomery United. We stand prepared to continue to work with you to achieve the goals set out in this document. Thank you all very much.